In this video, we will explore some different ways you can solve an equation like x squared equals 4. And most importantly, how you can understand what you're doing when you solve the equation. Let me show you what I mean. If you're watching this, you most likely were taught the following method. Adding a plus and minus on this side and leaving us with x equals plus or minus 2. We got the correct answers, but how we got them doesn't make sense to me. If this makes sense to you, let me ask you, why is the plus minus on only one side? In algebra, aren't we supposed to do the same thing to both sides? Are we taking the full root of one side and the principal root of the other? Why can't we just take the principal root of both sides? We'll sort that out in a minute. Let's start by graphing this equation. You might think it's impossible to graph this equation because it only has one variable. But let me show you. And then we graph these two equations starting with y equals 4. That's pretty simple. And then y equals x squared. So if x is equal to 1, y is equal to 1. If x is equal to 2, y is equal to 4. If x is equal to -1, y is equal to 1. If x is equal to -2, y is equal to -4. And we know that this equation has the shape of a parabola. Now, this gives us the two solutions, one at x equals -2 and one at x equals 2. If you don't like graphing, that's okay. I just included this as a bonus. Alright, now back to solving using a square root. Now let's try just taking the principal root of both sides and see what happens. But to clarify what I mean by the principal root, let's look at the square root of 4. Now, the square root of 4 means the number that when multiplied by itself equals 4. Now, there's 2 because 2 times 2 equals 4. There's also -2 because -2 times -2 equals 4. The radical sign always means just the positive or principal root. So it's correct to write square root of 4 equals 2. If we want both the positive and negative root, we write a plus or minus in front of the square root. And note that the plus or minuses are similar in this case. That is, they're either both plus or both minus. All right, so let's take the principal root of both sides of this equation. Square root x squared equals square root 4. So that leaves us with x equals It's just the principal root, so that would be 2. That gives us only one answer. So what did we do incorrectly? Didn't we obey the laws of algebra and do the same thing on both sides? Here's something that I learned when making this video. The square root of x squared equals the absolute value of x, not just x. This is in fact the definition, or a definition, of absolute value. If you think about it, x squared is always going to be some positive number. The principal root of x squared is still just going to be a positive number. Even if x is negative, this is still going to be a positive number. So to say that this is equal to just x, say x was -2. This would turn out to be -2. This would turn out to be 2 equals -2. So we can fix that by putting an absolute value around the x. Alright, finally, let's try and solve the equation again, using what we know about absolute value of x. So we take the square root of both sides, principal root, and this leaves us with absolute value of x equals 2. Now you can just look at this and say, okay, absolute value of x is going to be equal to 2 when x is +2 or -2. Now you can break it down further by saying when x is greater than or equal to 0, x equals 2. If x is less than 0, -x equals 2, or x equals -2. Because an absolute value is really splitting it into two equations. Okay, so that is a way of solving this that maybe you can feel a little better about than this. Now for the bonus round. Can you think of one more way that we can solve this equation? How about factoring? All right. Oops. Don't know how that happened. My pencil got turned around. Okay, so we subtract 4 from both sides. And then we see that this is a difference of squares. So that is going to be factored as x plus 2, x minus 2 equals 0. And this is going to be equal to 0 when either one of these two terms are equal to 0. This is equal to 0 when x is -2. So that's a solution. This is equal to 0 when x is 2. So there are our two answers to the equation. I find it surprising how widely the traditional method, or correct with a question mark method, is taught, even though it's a shortcut. I would guess that very few people understand what they're doing when they use the shortcut. I made this video because I think understanding math is important rather than just following rules.